Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Thrive After Sports podcast. If you were joining us on the Power of Story, thank you for being there as well. I'm your host, as always, Taj Deshawn. And folks, I'm here with a very special guest. This is kind of a surreal moment for me right now. I feel like I'm sitting in a time machine. I'm here with Eden Mahina, who is the Director of Player Academic Development for football at the University of Oregon. Crazy story. I played high school football with this guy. I always had a lot of respect for this man. And then as life would have it, we kind of lost touch, but recently got back in touch thanks to the power of LinkedIn, and some great things have come from it. So I'm excited for him to share his story with you today. Eden, before we get into it, man, I know I gave you a brief intro, just really scratch the surface. Can you let everybody know a little bit about your background and just who you are before we dive in today?
Of course, man. Yeah, so obviously we played high school football together. But yeah, currently I'm the player of academic development here at the University of Oregon for football. I work really closely with the student athletes and basically making sure that as I work with their on-campus advisors, making sure eligibility numbers, major requirements, all that stuff is met, and just to keep tab on the players that are kind of more high risk, that need a little bit more help and support, to be there for them and kind of give them a little kick in the butt just in case they get out of line. But yeah, currently that's what I do here at the University of Oregon. I've been here since actually my 2-year anniversary was on Monday. So I've been here for now 2 years fully, and enjoying in Eugene, as you can see in the background, just the beautiful colors, especially in this fall time. And, it's been fun to be here at the University of Oregon. It's been great.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, the background is beautiful. I was telling you that before we started recording. If you're listening to the audio of this podcast, make sure you click the link in the description to go check out the full length video. Just, if anything, just to see this man's office setup, because it's looking good over there, man. I'm loving what I'm seeing back there. So, for a little bit of context before we dive in, after Eden and I reconnected and had a great conversation, I'm like, we got to get you on the show, man, because I encounter a lot of former athletes who want to work in academics. In athletics, in athletic departments. And I always tell people there's two types of people. There's people who want to work and stay around athletics, be it coaching or, in an athletic department, because it's all they know. And they're afraid to branch off and explore other things. That's one category. The other category is people like Eden, who just have a heart for service and who are really intentional about doing great work and giving back to athletes, whether it's coaching or working in athletic department. So, I felt like Eden would be a great example of that. So as you're listening to kind of Eden's journey, as we get into it, I want you to see yourself and put yourself in his shoes and get inspired that if this is a path that you're serious about taking, great things can happen for you if you stay true to that. So without further ado, man, I know you played football at University of New Mexico after we both left Upland High. And you played, did you play O-line and D-line, or was it O-line?
Nah, just O-line. So after Upland, actually, I went JUCO first, Mount Sac in Walnut, California. I was there for 2 years, kind of split in between me. I played 1 year, then I went on a 2-year mission for my church, came back, played a year, and then went to New Mexico. So 2 years I was at the University of New Mexico in 14 and 15.
Quick question, man. Just with that, with you going on that 2-year mission before you came back to play ball, I've always wondered, man, I didn't even plan on asking you this, but during that 2 years where you're away on your mission, how do you stay in football shape, and how do you continue to train during that 2 years?
It's actually, it's kind of difficult. You really only get 30 minutes in the morning. You have like a set schedule of what you're allowed to do. Really only get like 30 to an hour to work out. And obviously, that's not really enough time if you're trying to stay, in shape to play football. So I left after my freshman year at Mount Sac. I was like 295 playing offensive line, right? And I left on my mission. And when I came back from my mission, I came back weighing like 225. So I had lost a lot of weight because I served my mission in Panama, and we just walked around. It was hot, sweating all day. We walked literally, I don't know how many miles we walked a day, but we would walk or we'd get on the bus. And so I lost, all that weight. And then when I got back, I had to put on that weight again. So it's a little difficult to try and maintain your physique. Like a lot of guys will, either when they come back, they'll use like their redshirt year sometimes just to kind of get back into shape and then, continue their clock that way.
So when you came back from the mission, did you redshirt or did you go back into playing?
No, so I got back in like March of 2013, and I was like 225, like 230 around there, and I just got back, and I was like, I started spring ball with Mount Sac, and I was like, I'll just have to gain the weight quick, and then I got back up to like 275 probably before the beginning of the season. So within those couple months, I got up. It wasn't the most healthiest weight, but I just had to get up, and I just started working out again, and then I was able to play, and then throughout the season just kept getting a little bit bigger each week. And then obviously when I got to New Mexico, they put me on this whole plan and everything, so it all worked out.
Right. And I always love to ask people, man, how does because people have heard me share on the podcast before. I was extremely disappointed with my career at Stony Brook. There were some things I could have done better, and I felt like there were things, out of my control. But how was your career at New Mexico? Do you feel like you had a solid career there? Were you happy with it when it was all said and done?
Yeah, I enjoyed it. At New Mexico, before I got there, we hadn't won a lot of games. Like New Mexico was going like 1-11, 2-10. And I wasn't used to that, obviously, playing at Upland and then playing at Mount Sac too. My freshman year at Mount Sac, we went 13-0, won the JUCO national championship, all that. So just winning culture is something that I was always used to. And then I got to New Mexico, and we went 4-8 my junior year. And I was like, I couldn't deal with that. It was hard. It was hard to lose that many games. And it really tested you to see, like, do you really love football? Like, do you love this game, or do you just love being able to win? And you know what I mean?
Right.
But fortunately, my senior year, we went to a bowl game for the first time in like 7 years at New Mexico. Unfortunately we lost to Arizona that year in 2015. But the next year after I left, they did like 9-3 and won the bowl game that they went to. So it was like a start of kind of helping the program. So I was pretty proud of that. I did enjoy my career. I loved it. I feel like if I had a little bit more time there at New Mexico, I could have probably done a little bit better. But came from JUCO and started right away my junior year. So it was like, I feel like if I had used my redshirt year, maybe that first year I got there at New Mexico, I could have, done a little bit better. But I mean, it is what it is. I enjoyed playing. I had fun.
That's awesome, man. And then when it comes to the NFL, were you trying to get to the next level, or was there a certain point where you're like, I don't think this is going to happen for me, I need to start thinking about life after football? What was the tail end of your career like?
Yeah. So, I mean, the NFL had always been a dream for me when I was a kid. I feel like every young kid's like, I'm going to the NFL and it'd be the greatest thing since, whatever, Jerry Rice or whoever. And after high school, when I didn't get any like offers out of high school, my brother was a big time D1 recruit out of high school. And I was just thinking it was just going to happen for me. Everyone knew that our name, and because of him. So I thought, oh, they're going to recruit me too. And when it didn't end up that way, and then I had to go JUCO, I realized, all right, you're not as good as you thought you were. So let's just try and get D1, get your education paid for. That was always kind of been my mindset. And so then I said, if I'm good enough to go to the NFL, I know what that will look like. And, I was okay. I got like honorable mention, Mountain West Conference my senior year. I knew I wasn't the best in the conference. And, I just was like, okay, I could try to go to the NFL, or I could be proud to get my degree and then start my regular life after football, whatever that may be. And so that's kind of where my mindset was, like right after high school. And I was like playing JUCO. I was like, when I realized like you could go to the NFL, it's a possibility, but let's plan for something else just in case that doesn't happen. So that was always my mindset when I was playing the junior college. I just wanted to go D1, get a scholarship, and get my education paid for. That was the biggest thing for me.
Got you. Yeah, man. So as your career started to wind down, or, senior year was approaching, did you have any idea of what you wanted to do in the quote unquote real world, like what your job or career was going to be, or were you kind of just trying to figure it out on the fly?
Yeah, I was really just trying to figure it out. Like, when you're going through it and you're playing ball and you're like, man, sometimes this sucks. Waking up 6 a.m, doing workouts and all this stuff. And I had a crazy offensive line coach. Like he was super strict, super like, you got to do every single thing right. Like I'm going to work you to the bone during practice and work you like just super strict. But I'm grateful for him because he gave me that mindset of like, working hard is going to help you in life no matter what you do. And it's everything in life after what he put us through is going to be easier than what we were going through at the moment, or at least it felt like. So yeah, I didn't really have a goal per se, but I just knew that whatever it was that I decided to pursue, that I would be fit to be able to do it in the best, to the best of my abilities. I had an interest in always in sports. I had that in the back of my mind. Like, I think it would be dope to work in sports. I was thinking throughout college, I did my undergrad in communication, and I was thinking maybe I could be a broadcaster or something like that. That was something that kind of interested me as well. So I knew kind of like being around sports my whole life. It's obviously something that I enjoy, that could be a possibility. But then as I got closer to the end of my senior year, I was like, oh, I just want to graduate, and then, we can move back home to California with my family, and then I can just find a job there and just kind of see what I like to do. But didn't really have like a plan after my senior year. I just was like, I'll figure it out. That's kind of my mentality.
Right. Quick question, man. You just made me think of something, because when you talk about moving back home with family, that's arguably one of the most, at least at first, one of the most difficult parts of the transition, where you go from, being big man on campus, or big woman, for athletes, female athletes, you go from playing at a high level, being on your own, being a young adult, having that freedom. And then a lot of times, for those of us who are fortunate enough to go back to family, I know not everybody is fortunate enough to have that, but even, folks like you and I who go back home with family, that's a challenge in and of itself. That was very difficult for me to go back to my childhood bedroom after being away for 4 years. So did you have any challenges, or was it kind of just like, hey, I'm back home, I'm figuring it out? What happened after you left New Mexico?
So for those that don't know, I was married at the time that I was playing at New Mexico. So when I got back from my mission, I got married to my wife. We dated in high school, and then we got married as soon as I got back from my mission. So I was married at the time, and then my senior year at New Mexico, right before our bowl game, we had my daughter Ava, who's now 5, and she's going to be 6 in December. So I was like, man, we got to move back to California. We're going to be in.
All right, we're back, everybody. Just had a phone call come in, but I think we left off, Eden. You were talking about just, you had your daughter right before the bowl game, and you had just moved back home. So what happened after you got back home, and what was life after the game like for you?
So I moved back home. Moved back home to California with my in-laws. So we're living with my in-laws, and I had planned to. During my last semester, I had started an internship at Enterprise Rent-A-Car. And so I told them, after I graduate, I'm moving back to California, if I could transfer branches from New Mexico to California. And they're like, yes, but you'll have to go there and obviously interview again. And they'll say, okay, you're fit for our branch, we'll rehire you, whatever. So we moved back, and then I interviewed again, but they didn't end up hiring me. So I was kind of out of a job, and I was like, oh, well, shoot, that was my whole plan, to move back to California and work with Enterprise, because they did have a great structure. They work with a lot of former student athletes. And I kind of enjoyed it at the time. Now I look back and I'm like, I'm glad I didn't stick with that. So my father-in-law was kind enough to offer me a job at his work. He worked for a general contractor in California, an electric company. Working in the office, doing different things. So he kind of hooked me up with a job doing that. And I just remember having that feeling of like, damn, now I'm back at home in California, living with my in-laws, with my wife and my daughter, and not really doing what I expected to be doing. I'm just doing something because I needed to provide for my wife and my daughter. And I was just like, man, this isn't what I had expected. It was definitely something that I struggled with for, those first couple of months. And then I kind of got into the flow of things and started to get a little bit better. But it was definitely something that I struggled with for sure, because it didn't work out how I expected it to work out.
Yeah, man. I appreciate you being transparent with that part of your story, because, I mean, that's why we're here, man. And you and I both know how many athletes end up in that exact same spot. I was doing the same thing. Just, I got to find something to make some money and get my bills paid. So whoever's hiring, I'll take it. And there's not a lot of time for athletes, for us to really figure out, what do I really want to be doing? It's just like, I got to make some money right now. So I'm going to go where the money is, which can lead you into, being unfulfilled and almost feeling stuck somewhere. But you, once again, this is why I wanted to have you on. You didn't just stay there and say, well, I guess this is my life. You decided to make a change and do something about the unhappiness that you were experiencing. So how did you make a pivot and start to, carve out a lane for that next chapter of your life after you, left the construction company and all that and enterprise?
Yeah. So, I mean, I was working with my father-in-law, and my wife, Candace, had always known that I wanted to be kind of in sports. And she was like, well, why don't you kind of look at master's programs? That's something you had talked about. And she said, the longer you wait, the more, it's unlikely that you'll go back to school again to get a master's. The longer you wait, you're more unlikely to do that. So she was like, why don't you look at what can be online, just something that's not super expensive that you can do online to get your master's. And I was like, all right. So that was always in the back of my mind. And, obviously you get caught up in life and you're not really thinking about it, but, a year had passed already. And then I was like, all right, I think I'm going to start looking at these master's programs for real. So I did my research and was kind of looking around, and I came across Azusa Pacific. They had an online master's program in sports management, and that was something that was kind of could work for the field, for me getting back into sports. And so I applied. I expected to start, like, not right away, but maybe in a couple months for the new term or semester or whatever it was, for the fall. But when I applied, they accepted me and they said that you could start in the summer, which was a lot sooner than I expected. And so I was like, all right, let's do it. So started my master's program. And right as I started my master's program, unfortunately, I was fired from my job that I worked at with my father-in-law, because business was really slow at the time. And it was kind of the first or last man in, first man out kind of deal. Wasn't that I wasn't a good worker. It was like, I'm really sorry. But my boss said that I have to let you go because business is really slow. We're not making a lot of sales. We don't have a lot of jobs right now that we're working on. And so he felt really bad about that, but I said, don't worry about it. This kind of is better for me anyways, I think, in the long run. Even though it sucks to get fired and then you're not making money, that stressed me out a lot. But I went to school, actually went back to Upland, and I coached for a year with Coach Salter. And that's kind of where I started my journey back into sports. So coached at Upland for that 2017 year. And then I got an offer to be an offensive line coach at a junior college in Southern California at San Bernardino Valley College. The head coach there coached me while I was at Mount Sac. He said, come be my offensive line coach. I said, of course. And then did that while I finished up my master's. And then fortunately, a couple months later, I was brought back to my father-in-law's company to work part-time. So it just kind of all like worked out. It kind of fit here and there, puzzle pieces. It wasn't like as perfect or as smooth as I had wanted to, but it was like, hey, you can start this now. all right, now you can come back part-time so you can still coach and you can still do your master's. It just kind of all worked out, for the better. And so then finished my master's, and that's when I just started to look for positions back in the sports realm after I finished my master's program.
That's awesome, man. Like you said, everything just sort of started working for your highest good once you had a vision locked in. Once we realized, okay, this is my target. I'm just going to kind of take part-time jobs or do what I need to do while I'm working on this. I think that's great for people to hear, man, because it doesn't always have to be this clearly laid out path. A lot of times it could just be like, this is what I want, and I'm just going to do what I need to do in the meantime until I can get there. So, and shout out to your wife, man. Shout out to Mrs. Mahina for giving you the spark to go get the master's and really pursue it, man. I think that's huge. That's a beautiful thing, brother.
Yeah.
And then so you keep going, you get the master's, and then what was your first sort of outside of coaching, of course, what was your first job in athletics once you got your master's degree?
So I finished my master's in December of 2018, and then as soon as I finished, I had reached out. I saw a couple of things on LinkedIn of like just some entry level positions for sports. And I applied, but never got a response. And then I was like, all right, let me go back to my connections that I had in New Mexico. Obviously, I met some great people there. I reached out to Frank, who was, he's the AD of communication there at the University of New Mexico for sports. So he handles all the media, all that stuff. And so I was pretty close with him, and I reached out and said, hey, finished my master's program in sport management, looking to just get a foot in the door, not really sure where I could help in, at New Mexico. Sorry, man. I'm a busy dude. Sometimes I just
I know, man. Hey, you're in high demand. It's all good, brother.
But reached out to him, sent him an email, and said, do you guys have anything open that you think, I could help benefit the program or even start my career? And he's like, actually, yeah, here's a list of the couple of things that we have open now. I think you'd be great for these couple of things, just depending on kind of what you want to do. And one of those positions was academic advisor for the football team. And I was like, academic advising? I don't know if I don't really know anything about, what the NCAA requirements. I just know that you got to pass your classes and do good in your classes. And so I was like, all right, let's try it out. So I applied, and then I realized that the head of academics at the University of New Mexico was a former learning specialist at New Mexico that I had worked with before. She helped me with one of my classes, and we made a great bond while I was there. And I reached out and said, hey, I applied for this position. I saw that you're now the director of academics at the University of New Mexico. Just want to give you a heads up. And she's like, oh my goodness, this is awesome. Let me give you a call. And then we talked, and I had my interview, and I pretty much laid it out. I said, obviously, I don't know anything about academic advising. I don't know what you need to be eligible. I don't know that stuff, but I think that's something that I can learn very quickly. But what I think what I do bring as a value is I played football there. Everyone still remembers me. Played football, was a pretty good student. And I understand the struggles that student athletes face as a football player, in the academic world, and being tired and not wanting to go to class. And I can relate to them. I'm still pretty young that I can talk to them about, hey, I remember, because the head coach is still there. I played for him. He was kind of, how I navigated through things and kind of give him my 2 cents on life. And then they hired me, and I worked there in New Mexico, and I loved it. It was awesome. Enjoyed it so much.
That's awesome, man. And just for the listeners, a couple of things I want to pull out of that, because this is something that people have heard me who listen to my podcast, and people I've coached directly. I talk about this type of stuff all the time, which is something that you shared, and you went the extra mile. You reached out to people. You made contacts. You were transparent. You didn't say, hey, I need a job. I need some help. You're like, look, I'm going to be transparent with you. I don't know much, but this is what I do have. I'm a former player. I got a good head on my shoulders. I know the struggles. I understand the structure of it. I think I can serve if I'm just given an opportunity. But that's what I want people to take away is that you didn't just, you weren't sitting on Indeed all day, just applying for stuff and wishing for the best. You applied for positions, you made connections, you had phone calls with people, you were transparent, you weren't asking, you were more so telling people how you could serve. And so I think that's major, man. And I hope people are paying attention to that and seeing themselves in your story, because that's the way it happens. It doesn't happen just by applying for jobs and stuff and just wishing for the best. It happens by developing relationships, developing those human connections, and figuring out a way to just add value up front before you start asking for things. So I appreciate you sharing that journey, man. And this was something when you and I reconnected, you told me about. I thought this was crazy how you're in a position right now, as we know, that people would kill for. To be in your shoes right now, sitting in that beautiful office, man. Once you were at New Mexico doing your thing there, how did the position at Oregon come about?
So it really just kind of came out of nowhere. I had only been in New Mexico for about, 7 months, and I loved it. I wasn't looking to move on. I wasn't searching for a new job. I loved the people that I worked with. I loved the students that I worked with. I was having a really great time. And I literally just randomly got an email from the director of football operations here at Oregon. And it was a quick email. It said, hey, we have a position open that we think you would fit. And we would like, let me know if you have any time to talk about it. And that was pretty much it. And it was, he didn't have a signature, and it wasn't like, usually like schools, you have someone that has a signature that says, director of football operations, and they have the Oregon, whatever, and, a picture or something. And it was nothing. And so I was like, this is weird. Like, I don't think this is real. Because we would get spam emails all the time, like phishing emails, people trying to get your information, stuff like that. And I would just delete them or send it to the junk folder. And then one of my coworkers at New Mexico, I showed her, and I was like, you think this is real? And she said, well, look at his email. Is it an actual school email? And then look him up. And I was like, oh, true. So I looked at his email. I was like, okay, at oregon.edu. Okay, that makes sense. And then I looked him up, and I was like, oh, wow, this is a real person. So emailed him back right away and was like, of course, I'd love to talk about this opportunity. Let me know when you're available to talk. We exchanged numbers, and then we were on the phone a couple of days later. We talked, and then he was like, just based off this phone call, we'd like to bring you in for an interview. And they brought me in for an interview like the next week, and had my interview. I met with, all the coaches, offensive side, defensive side, met with the strength staff, met with the academic services here at Oregon, met with a bunch of people. It was a whole day, interview. From the time I landed to the time I got back to the hotel, I was in interviews like all day. And that night, when I finally met with the head coach, he was like, we want to offer you the position. So I interviewed, and they offered me the position that same day. And I couldn't believe it. I was like, are you serious? Like, I thought this was a good experience just to even interview. And then they offered me the job, and I was like, I couldn't believe it. I was like, whoa. I was not expecting that, but, just, I guess I was the right person at the right time for the right job. So, I didn't know anyone here. And so I was surprised when they had reached out to me, and, I ended up getting the job. So it's been a blessing for sure.
That's awesome, man. And one of the coolest things about it, and I remember from the last time we spoke, you were sharing with me, as random as it seems, like that's a fairy tale. Most people would just dream of Oregon or, whatever their dream school or whoever it is, just to send them an email one day and offer to interview them. As random as it seems, it wasn't random at all, right? There was a lot of reasons why they reached out to you, which I'm sure we can get into. But one of the things that stood out the most to me is that you had developed a reputation because you were doing great work at New Mexico. If you were just, skating along, collecting a paycheck, they probably wouldn't have reached out to you. But you were telling me there was a very specific reason they were looking for someone like you. They felt like you were the perfect fit for the job. what were some of those reasons why the seemingly random email came about? Why did they reach out to you specifically?
Yeah, so when I got here, after a couple weeks, and then I talked to our director of football operations, and I said, "Hey, quick question. How did you guys find me? Like, I didn't know anybody here. What was the process in that search or whatever you guys did?" And they said, "Yeah, we did an extensive search. That's how we normally do anytime we are looking to hire staff. We do an extensive search, even coaches as well. We'll look at backgrounds. We'll look at experience, coaching experience, just kind of what we're looking for in a candidate. And the specific criteria that we're looking for is obviously someone that works in academics, someone that had played the sport before, like, can understand everything that's going on with our players and working through all that. And then, sorry about that. Working through that. And then also someone that was Polynesian, because we do have a lot of Polynesian football players on our team, someone that can help connect with them. And then someone that has like a diverse background. And then that was kind of their search criteria. So they looked through all of D1, D2, everywhere for specific, people that fit that criteria. And I was happened to be one of them. So that's how they found me. That's how they got my information. And then that's when they reached out. So for that to happen, obviously it was incredible and amazing. And, I'm just forever grateful that they are able to find me.
Yeah, man. It's an awesome story how it came about. And like I said earlier, it wasn't super random. And also it's not just because you're Polynesian, right? It's not just because of that. That's one of the factors, but it's also because of the reputation you developed at New Mexico and just kind of your track record. We were talking a little bit about this before we started recording, man, but what does it mean to you? Just because you were talking about just being Polynesian and what that means and the example that you want to set, right? Being bigger than just football and all that type of stuff. But what does it mean for you as a man of, Polynesian descent to be in that position right now? And, you got a lot of eyes on you, man. What does that mean to you?
I think I love that I'm able to, show them, because there's that stigma of we're big, we play ball, we hit hard, we run fast. And that's kind of all we'll ever really be good at is playing football and playing sports. And me being in this position, there's not a lot of, Polynesians that are in these type of positions in academia, in education. And so for me to be able to be on this side and show them, there's a lot that you can accomplish through sports, not, you can only accomplish sports or go to the NFL. There's a lot that you can do and use your scholarship to help you get to be whatever you want to become. Use your scholarship to become, if you want to become a doctor or whatever it may be, use that scholarship to look past just playing the sport, but to how you can help bring back something to your community. And for me to be, hopefully I'm a role model, and I think I am to these Polynesians on the team, and someone they can confide in to talk to them and help them understand, like, we're more than just, we have that warrior mentality. We understand that, but we're more than just a warrior. We can lead and we can guide and we can help. We can help others see how important we can be in that aspect of education, in that aspect of development and life in general. And that's kind of like why I love the position I'm in, is they can see another guy that, maybe they've been told, this is your only ticket out is football. You can go to the NFL and make a lot of money. That's not reality. It is for some, but it's for very few. So use this time to take it as an advantage to help you for life after football.
I love it, man. That's a beautiful thing, man. And I appreciate you sharing that piece too. Shout out to all the Polynesian listeners of Thrive After Sports and the Power of Story. Eden, I know we're quickly approaching the top of the hour, man. I want to be respectful of your time. Do you have like 5-10 more minutes, or you have a hard stop at the top of the hour?
No, we can. Yeah, we're good, man. We can go another 5-10.
Okay, cool. I know you're a busy man. I don't want to hold you too long. I did want to ask you though, because we talked about your actual role at Oregon now, director of player academic development for football. A lot of times when I encounter athletes I'm working with, they automatically just say if they want to work in academics or athletic departments or academics or whatnot, they talk about, oh, I want to be an athletic director. They just go straight to that, right? It's either I want to be a coach or an athletic director. And I have to explain to them there are so many different areas you can go and serve. You don't just have to be a coach or an athletic director. So I think it would be helpful for listeners if you could just, like I said, I want to be respectful of your time. This could be an hour-long conversation, but if you could just give like a high-level view of your role and what it is that you actually do at the University of Oregon.
So, like my day to day, normally in the mornings, I'm just getting ready for when the student athletes or the football players are going to head over to campus because we are a morning operation. So we practice in the morning. And so me, as I work with the on-campus advisors, working with scheduling, helping them understand, all right, this is your academic time block for when we're done with sports. You have from 1 to 6 o'clock to get your classes in, to get your tutoring in, and then helping them kind of manage that time. So there's a lot of things that I do. It's kind of hard to explain what I do, but I mean, for the most part, I'm help with, making sure I keep a list of the eligibility numbers. So like how many credits the guys passed each term, how many credits they need to pass the next term to make sure that they're eligible for the next term or eligible for that season. Keeping track of, GPAs, where their GPA needs to be at, what their GPA needs to be at for a specific major, and then helping them kind of figure out, all right, well, what major do you want to pursue? This is what you'll need to get into that college if you do decide to get into that major, and kind of helping them guide along with their on-campus advisors who do that as well. But it's just they get it from both sides now. They get it from me here, and they get it from their on-campus advisors. And then we do a bunch of stuff like this morning. Me and Tony, who I work with in player development, who's our director of player development, we helped one of our players. We had to jumpstart his car. His car wasn't working, so we went and we got cables and jumpstarted his car. I help Tony do move-ins. So when anytime we got new athletes coming in and moving in, we'll help with the move-ins. Tony does more of the grunt work on that for setting up apartments and stuff like that, but I'll help in that aspect as well, moving in players, talking to parents. So, and then I'm in recruiting as well. So whenever we have a couple official visitors coming this weekend, so I'll do like tours at the academic center, kind of walk them through what's their life is going to be like in the academic center, have them meet with an advisor, and then we meet with the parents and them and kind of talk about what they expect out of their journey as a student athlete. I meet with the coaches so they keep updated on their players, keep up with their players, and then keep up with their grades, making sure they're staying on top of their stuff, what assignments they have coming up. So just a lot of different things that it just covers kind of a broad area. But just with my background in academics, that's why I'm able to understand what they need to do within that term or that year, what they need to be at. So there's a lot of things that I do, but that's kind of the majority of it.
That's awesome, man. See, that's the stuff, helping jumpstart cars and move into places. That's the stuff they don't put in the job description.
Yeah.
So that's awesome, man. And I think it's perfect, like you said earlier on, for you to be relatable to the players. It makes you a perfect fit for that role. So, shout out to University of Oregon for making a great hiring decision and bringing you on board. You know what I'm saying? One final question before we close out, man. I want to use this as an opportunity. Just if there's anything you want to share, anything that's on your heart, maybe just give some words of advice to athletes who may be struggling. You can give advice to your younger self who was just trying to figure it out. That's the majority of people who listen to the show, man. So any advice you can share to former athletes right now who may be listening, just trying to map out the next steps, figure out what they want to do, what would you say to those people right now?
Man, to anyone out there, if you want to have a life in sports, you want to have a career in sports, just jump into it. Just go for it. It's never going to be perfect. It's never going to be what you expect. It's never going to be exactly what you want. But if it's something that you really want, then just go for it. Life is going to throw curveballs at you. Life is gonna make it difficult, but you just got to keep rolling with the punches. Former student athletes, you understand how it goes. The game, there's momentum in games, and then there's drop offs. Like you're gonna have a great first quarter, and then you're gonna drop off in the second. You're gonna come back halftime, game plan. Third quarter, you're gonna come out hot, but then you'll drop in the third, but then you'll come into the fourth quarter. It's just there's gonna be flows throughout your entire life, throughout your entire career, but you just got to be able to adapt and be able to make changes. Don't be stagnant. Life is always changing. You can learn more. There's always stuff you can read up on. There's always stuff that you can get better at. You're not going to be perfect, but as athletes, we understand that it's not always going to be a beautiful picture. You might win a game 7-6, but you know what? You got the job done. So you just got to understand that as long as you're stepping forward, putting one foot in front of the other, and keeping your head to the grindstone, you'll be all right.
That's right, man. Solid advice right there, brother. Well, hey, man, I don't want to hold you all night. I definitely appreciate you coming on and spending some time. I know people are going to get a lot out of this episode. So I appreciate you coming on and just sharing your journey. Like I was telling you before, man, it's like sitting in a time machine right now, because who would have thought when we were in the locker room at Upland High, you'd be at Oregon and I'd be living in Texas, running a business, helping athletes. But here we are, man, and it's a beautiful thing. So, but yeah, one last thing. If people want to follow you on social media, or you don't have to give any contact information or anything like that, but social media handles, all that type of stuff, how can people look you up and just follow the journey?
Yeah, I don't even have my stuff memorized by heart. Let me look it up real quick.
I appreciate that.
I'm on Twitter. Let me see. It's E_Mahina 51. You can follow me on Twitter. I don't really post too much, but I'll retweet our guys and retweet some great stuff that they do. But if you want to follow me, man, go ahead.
There we go. Awesome, brother. Well, hey, thank you again, man. This has been an honor. Appreciate you taking time to do this. For everyone listening, make sure you go tap in with Eden. I know you got some words of inspiration and encouragement out of this story. If Eden can do it, you can do it too. You just got to follow the footsteps and stay true and follow Eden's advice. So for everybody tuning in, thank you for being here. This has been another awesome episode of The Power of Story and Thrive After Sports with Eden Mahina. And we'll see you next time. Thanks again, Eden. Appreciate you, brother.
Appreciate you, my man.